Major news coming out of South Bend, Indiana. Al Golden is off to the NFL. A former college football legend is trying to not only look to be a head coach one day, but he's also trying to salvage a national championship. And we got the Heisman odds as well to discuss and a little bit more as well. So we got a packed show here like we're going to try to do every single day. We are going to be talking about college football just about every single weekday. So if you want to talk about college football, you want to build a community, trust me, I can get going with all the social media stuff. We can get a Discord server. We can do whatever. We got to gain that interest first. And the best way you can help me with that is simply clicking the like button. It hurts you none, costs you none. And all it does is take a college football fan like yourself and it recommends them this video. If you comment down below too, your thoughts and stuff, I'm going to respond and I will be having discussions there. You can check me out over here on TikTok. And also, if you're on Spotify, why not add me? You're listening to me right now. You might as well add the podcast onto your phone there on Spotify. All right, Al Golden, as we previously mentioned, is going off to the Cincinnati Bengals. And without getting too deep into the weeds with the Cincinnati Bengals, I definitely think it's a good fit, even though I don't think coordinator was necessarily their problem last year. I think Al Golden, with the experience he has being a Cincinnati Bengals assistant in the past, having familiarity with that franchise, I think it's a really good fit, and I'm hoping Al Golden has success. I personally am a Bears fan at the NFL level. I could care less if the Bengals are winning or losing, but I definitely want to see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, how great they are, have a complimentary defense on the other side, because I think that could create a Super Bowl contending team. This is a college football show. Little tidbit on the NFL right there. But as far as Notre Dame goes going forward, Al Golden and what his identity was as the defensive play caller was definitely formed around what Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman wanted to be on defense. Marcus Freeman, if you remember, was a defensive coordinator under Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, and then he got hired by Brian Kelly at Notre Dame before getting elevated to that head coaching role. And he made a great hire getting Al Golden because, to me, Al Golden was a much better defensive play caller and defensive coordinator than Marcus Freeman. Some guys are built to be a head coach and not as much coordinator, and some guys are built to be a coordinator but not built to be a head coach. I think Marcus Freeman is one of those guys that is just one of those natural head coaches, but it took him a little bit of time with the defensive coordinator thing, and he never really was great or one of the best in the sport. And that's just the truth. So for all the Notre Dame fans out there, I'm not being overly critical because we're going to come full circle with this, but I definitely think that you should not be too comfortable with the idea that Marcus Freeman is a defensive coach. So it's really Marcus Freeman's defense. It wasn't, and it's not. It's Marcus Freeman blending his identity and his bouncing ideas off of Al Golden. And at the end of the day, the Al Golden image that they had worked, and they have to keep that going. I don't have a short list of names in front of me of who Notre Dame's going to go after, and I don't have any recommendations for who they should get. But I believe what Marcus Freeman needs to do over there at Notre Dame, and like a great CEO, he needs to get somebody immediately who's going to help them win next year. Because I've said it time and time again, leading up to the national championship in the college football playoff, really, and going into next season now, I'm going to continue saying it all offseason. I think Notre Dame could potentially be better next year. Now, it's hard to win a national championship. It was hard for them to get there the way that they did this year. But with that being said, I think Notre Dame is definitely going to be a job that a defensive coordinator is going to really like if he wants to play as an aggressive play caller. He's going to have physical corners on the outside. I mean, even if Benjamin Morrison doesn't come back, which I'm inclined to believe he is going to come back, I still think that they're going to be very physical, very big in the secondary, and that scheme fit is going to be very important for Marcus Freeman to find. So if Notre Dame can find that consistent scheme fit with what Marcus Freeman and the assistants there learned from Al Golden, depending on if Al Golden does have the opportunity to take position coaches with him to the NFL or analysts to the NFL. If all these guys stay intact outside of Al Golden, I think that Notre Dame will be fine. They got to make sure that they have the right guy that's going to fit the Notre Dame identity and what they're going to look like for the next couple of years in the secondary and on the defensive line. They need to be able to fit that match. And if they can get that perfect match, or at least a good match, I think this Notre Dame team is still on track to be really, really dangerous next year. And I don't think this hurts them a ton, but they got to make sure that they get that consistency at that defense coordinator spot locked in for Notre Dame in 2025. Now we got some Heisman odds to talk about. And the Heisman Trophy is something that is usually won by a quarterback. And it doesn't surprise you necessarily that the quarterbacks are going to dominate this list for next year. Here I have what I believe is the top 20 players for Heisman odds. And I have one dark horse that's not mentioned in the top 20 that I'm going to mention as a possibility. It's just a possibility. It's a long shot. The odds-on favorite right now, tied for first place, is Garrett Nussmeier, the co-favorite to win the Heisman Trophy with Arch Manning over at Texas. Arch Manning doesn't surprise me. With the amount of media publicity that he's going to get and playing in Steve Sarkisian's system, just that whole circumstance, okay, I see that. Garrett Nussmeier is interesting to me. Now, he belongs towards the top of this list, and frankly, there's not a ton of depth of names here to really go off of. So, in a way, this makes sense. I would probably say Arch Manning, if I was Vegas, would be the lone favorite here. But Garrett Nussmeier, if he can lead LSU to a college football playoff, I mean, he's going to be the biggest reason why. Great quarterback play from Garrett Nussmeier is going to be the biggest reason why. And I think that, you know, this odds-on favorite thing for Garrett Nussmeier, though it's surprising, it kind of makes sense. Just based on stylistically, the way that LSU's offense has gone, even last year without Mike Denbrock, they were able to continue having that identity. And Garrett Nussmeier is an absolute gunslinger. I mean, he throws that ball around the yard. He's going to collect a lot of yards. He's going to be a stat guy. I just don't know if LSU is really going to be that good of a team, and I don't know if he's going to have those moments. The next players up, Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, and Nico Iamaleava. Those three quarterbacks are definitely guys that you look to and you're like, yeah, experienced guys, all of them going into at least their second year starting. But for Aller and Klubnik, it's their third year starting. The experience and the talent and the ability of those teams, in all likelihood, at least two of those three teams, if not all three of those teams, will probably be in the 12-team playoff next year. I think that this definitely is spot on with these three guys tied for third place. But the other guy that's tied for third place is a non-quarterback, and this doesn't shock you at all either. Jeremiah Smith, he is just an absolute stud up there. And if you look at these odds, the only team that has multiple in the top 10 of the odds is Ohio State. Julian Sayin is right next up at plus 1,800 alongside Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. I think Lenore Sellers is really good. The way that he played at the end of the year down the stretch, the bowl game was not pretty, really. And frankly, offensively, the Clemson game was not that pretty. But he showed a lot of flashes. He's going to have weapons around him. And you had to know that he was going to get a lot of hype going into this next year in the 2025 season, given the fact that he was getting so much love and praise by the media and people in social media. They were talking about how well Lenore Sellers was playing, so you knew he was going to be up there in the odds. Carson Beck, Dante Moore, I really thought Carson Beck would be higher, probably top 3, at the very least top 5, probably ahead of Nico Iamaleava. I mean, I think that's a good system fit for Carson Beck. And Dante Moore is definitely also a system thing. It's the Will Stein effect. They're going to be banking on the fact that this kid who did play a lot at UCLA as a true freshman, sat behind Dylan Gabriel, learned for a year that Will Stein offense. This is a little bit different than what Will Stein has had. His first year as the OC, obviously, he had a new quarterback with a new system. He had a new quarterback learning a new system last year. This is a situation where you have a kid coming back second year in the Will Stein system for the very first time since Will Stein got to Eugene. And that's going to be really important. But the guy outside of the top 10 that I want to look at is Austin Simmons. He's going to start over at Ole Miss, and I think the kid is uber talented. And when he came into the game for Jackson Dart against Georgia, he showed a lot leading that team down the field. If they have the weapons and they added Trey Wallace and they're going to have good receivers, I think, and I hope for this kid's sake, with that Lane Kiffin system, they could be a really good marriage there. And I think Austin Simmons has the potential to be a much better college quarterback than Jackson Dart was, as good as Jackson Dart was. I'm really high on this kid, Austin Simmons. I think he could be a great player. Now, the one that's completely off this list, I got a list here posted on Twitter from FanDuel. You didn't really see it, but whatever. I think that Austin Mack is the guy to watch for there. Kalen DeBoer, he played last year essentially without his style of quarterback in Jalen Milroe. Likes to improvise, runs around, a big arm, not super accurate, can't make all the NFL throws. Meanwhile, if you look at Kalen DeBoer, he had Michael Penix for a very long time, both at Indiana and at Washington. And it was predicated on him with timing and ball placement. Timing and ball placement. And that's why Austin Mack was brought from Washington to Alabama. And I think Austin Mack, being in the Kalen DeBoer system already for 2 years, this is going to be his third. He has a real chance with Ryan Williams out wide and whoever else they're going to have, but they're going to have some really talented kids out there. I think Austin Mack is a sleeper here, especially if Alabama goes on a run next year, if they're in the SEC championship. We can't forget that this Alabama team is still really talented, and Kalen DeBoer has proven to be a really good coach. And usually that second year is when things really crescendo with Kalen DeBoer's offenses. I think this offense could take a massive leap, and the prime guy that's going to lead Alabama through that leap is going to be Austin Mack, who I think is probably going to be the starter. He's the value bet, plus 10,000. It's, a long shot right now, but if you're looking for a long shot, that one's right there for it. That one's right there. The college football playoff might be changing, by the way. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. What's wrong with the college football playoff? What changes do they have to make with the college football playoff? And they're going to be discussing it. The Big Ten and the SEC, the athletic directors are going to meet on February 19th. And it's going to be ahead of the meeting between the board or whatever, the committee members. I don't even know what exact label is on them, but the people in charge of the college football playoff, they're going to meet. But the people who have the most power are these two conference commissioners, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, and then the ADs of the Power Four conferences, and in particular, the Big Ten and the SEC. And from reading up on it, what seems to be the most likely topic of conversation is expanding the 14. And look, if you want to give the Big Ten and SEC champ or the top two champs more of an advantage, since there was such a discrepancy between Conference 1 and Conference 2 and then the rest of them, I think it makes sense to go to 14. And that was one of the solutions that I proposed. I really don't think we should go beyond 14. I think it would hurt the regular season too much. And expanding it to 14, it's not for teams 13 and 14 who are going to sneak into the playoff, in Alabama and Miami from this year. But rather, it's for an Oregon. It's for an Oregon, so that way they're more rewarded. They're not going to play against Ohio State or Tennessee because their seating is going to be bumped up higher because of the fact that Boise State and Arizona State aren't just going to be automatically slotted in at the 3 and 4. That's not going to happen again under the 14. The proposed format is you get the 1 seed and the 2 seed are conference champions, and the rest of them are a mixed bag. It's going to go based on rankings there. I think that's a good move. I think that if they do end up doing that, it's very good. And whatever the commissioners decide at that meeting, the athletic directors with the commissioners decide at that meeting will probably be where we go going forward. Because, like I said, they have the power. They're going to take that power and they're going to run away with it. And whatever they want to happen is going to happen. And when will it happen? Whatever changes they're going to make, they're going to try to do it as soon as possible. I think it will either be 2026 or 2028. Seems like we do these in 2-year increments at the very least. It'll either be after next season. It won't be next season. I highly doubt that. But it will either be after next season or it'll be in 2028. Either way, we get one format and we're going to immediately shift is what it looks like. And it's probably right. I mean, the 12-team playoff was not necessarily a complete failure. I still think the best team who was playing the best football in the playoff won the national championship. But that being said, didn't necessarily give teams like Oregon and Georgia the benefit of the doubt the way that Penn State got the benefit of the doubt, or even Texas got the benefit of the doubt with being able to play lesser competition on their road to the semifinals. All right. Reggie Bush is popping off in the media right now. He has vocalized that he wants to become the head coach of USC one day. That's fascinating. I mean, don't you have to build up a little bit of experience there, Reggie? And honestly, it comes at a time, too, when USC has not been having too much success the last 2 years after a successful year 1 under Lincoln Riley. But years 2 and 3, not so much. And the direction they're going in is very murky. They got a good bowl win against Texas A&M, but at the same time, they're losing a lot of weapons on the perimeter. They extended Danton Lynn, which is definitely important. But to me, this is displaying a statement of displeasure towards Lincoln Riley's program right now from a notable alumni who, by the way, also popped off because he's trying to fight to get back that 2004 national championship that you see right here. And when it comes to that USC team, they went on a tear that was short-lived, as far as national championship, but that 3-year window, starting with, being able to win the Rose Bowl and get an AP split championship where they felt like they probably should have been given the opportunity to play LSU that year. USC ended up going on a 34-game win streak, and they were incredible. They were just incredible during that time period with Reggie Bush, LenDale White, Matt Leinart as the quarterback and the Heisman Trophy winner of that 2004 season. Wide receivers like Dwayne Jarrett and Mike Williams, really good players, studs. And the run that they went on was certainly fun, exciting. And that 2004 national championship is something that we don't forget. And we're going to be punishing USC retroactively too because of basically something that's allowed nowadays, right? An agent helping his family financially. That's the world we live in today, which is why Reggie Bush has grounds to not only try to get back his Heisman, but also he wants to get that USC national championship back. See, the hardware in the NCAA recognition and what they can hang in the Coliseum, they cannot be displaying that they won the 2004 national championship. But people like me, I'm educated on it. I don't remember it. I was 4 years old when they were crowned national champions. But I'm knowledgeable about it. A lot of you guys remember it. That team was incredible, not doing anything to change the on-field play. They didn't do anything foul to get Reggie Bush. To me, the championship stands like they're the national champions of 2004 in my eyes. And it's going to be a similar way when you talk about any sort of vacated wins, even with Michigan. And the problem that we have in the sport of college football and just with the NCAA in general is that we are so slow, or the NCAA is so slow to punish teams that deserve to be punished, to where you can go on and win a national championship and the NCAA tries to retroactively take that away. You retroactively take that away, and then all of a sudden, you don't have a national champion for that year. So what do the fans think? What do people like me think? Oh, USC won that championship. It's the same thing if they hypothetically, this is hypothetical, Michigan, man, if they hypothetically take away last year's national championship for Michigan based on all the Connor Stallion stuff and the COVID stuff, which, I mean, the COVID stuff is over, but whatever. If they were to hypothetically take that away, I know that they won the national championship. You know they won the national championship. If you wanted to prevent Michigan from winning the national championship, you should have had a better system in place to keep them out of the postseason that year. It's really that simple. It's the same thing as suspending players in the NFL that violate things and punishing teams that end up cheating in the NFL. They do that stuff. And the thing about it, too, is the only thing to me that is actually impactful that the NCAA does is punishing the organization going forward. And in a situation like Michigan's, not too many people that are still involved with that program was involved at all with the Connor Stallion stuff. Maybe their head coach, Sharon Moore. That's about it. That's about it. At least anybody with power. None of those players deserve that punishment. That is for sure. So what ends up happening in an example like what happened to USC is you try to go back and you punish these guys from 2004 and 2005. But what ends up happening is the program is hurt in 2010 with players that had nothing to do with that. The NCAA needs to change their process to try to prevent these national championships if a team and a university is breaking your rules. And if that means that you got to kind of skip through due process, so be it. It's your organization. If you deem them guilty, they're guilty. You have the say. You have the opinion that is the end all be all. So whether it's just or not, if you think a team is cheating or not abiding by your rules, wrap up that investigation quickly so that way we get a solution to the problem, not retroactively trying to cancel championships. Because people like me, people like you, the general fans that love the sport of college football, we know that Michigan won the national championship in 2023, and we know that USC won the national championship in 2004. You can never take that away. You can never take those memories away, and you can never take that knowledge away. Thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Like the video if you made it this far, and add me on Spotify if you made it this far. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.